The meeting hall of the Galactic Accord floated in neutral space, a massive structure built by 47 different civilizations over 3 centuries. Inside its crystal walls, representatives from across the galaxy gathered to discuss trade, boundaries, and peace. Today, however, the air felt heavy with tension. Ambassador Ji-won stood before the council, her hands clasped behind her back. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, and her face showed no emotion. Behind her, holographic displays showed images of human colonies, farms under alien suns, cities built with glass and steel, children playing in parks designed to feel like home. Humanity requests recognition of our 12 colony worlds, Ji-won said, her voice calm and clear. We seek only peace and the right to exist in our small corner of space. Across the chamber, High Commander Thrace of the Vrakan Empire lounged in his seat. His scales gleamed under the artificial lights, red and black patterns marking him as a warrior of the highest rank. He laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. Small creatures asking for crumbs, Thrace said. The Vrakan Empire has conquered 60 worlds. We have crushed 20 species. What makes you think you deserve anything? An elder representative, a being of pure energy contained in a shimmering field, spoke then. Its voice echoed with age and wisdom. High Commander, I have seen 10,000 years pass. I have watched empires rise and fall. Heed my words carefully. Do not make enemies of humans. Thrace laughed again. Why? They have barely 100 ships. Their weapons are basic. Their colonies are undefended. They are weak. No, another voice joined in. This one belonged to a crystalline being whose species had been traveling space for 5,000 years. They are not weak. They are restrained. There is a difference, and it is one you do not want to learn firsthand. Ji-won remained still, watching the exchange. She had heard these warnings before, from the older species who remembered things lost to time. But the Vrakan were young to the stars, only 300 years into their empire. They did not listen to caution. Your concern is noted, Thrace said, waving his clawed hand dismissively. But the sector bordering human space belongs to Vrakan now. We have claimed it. If they resist, they will be removed. Ji-won finally spoke, her voice colder now. We do not want war, High Commander. But we will not abandon our people. If you attack us, you will regret it. Is that a threat? Thrace stood, his massive form towering over most beings in the room. No, Ji-won said quietly. It is a promise. We are giving you the chance to choose peace. I suggest you take it. The meeting ended with no resolution. The Galactic Accord, as always, could not force its members to obey. It could only advise and hope. 3 weeks later, the Vrakan war fleet entered human space. Captain Hyunwoo sat in the command chair of the Eternal Horizon, a colony ship designed for protection and trade, not war. His crew of 200 monitored their stations, running through their daily routines. New Sol Colony stretched out below them, its lights twinkling like stars reflected in water. Captain, Lieutenant Borum called from the sensor station. We have contacts. Multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Hyunwoo leaned forward. Identification? They're not broadcasting. Configuration matches Vrakan military vessels. Borum's voice remained steady, but Hyunwoo could hear the tension underneath. Captain, there are over 50 of them. Dr. Minji, the ship's science officer, pulled up her screens. They're moving into attack formation. This is not a diplomatic approach. Hyunwoo activated the communications array. Vrakan fleet, this is Captain Hyunwoo of the human colony ship Eternal Horizon. You are entering protected space. Please state your intentions. Silence answered him. Vrakan fleet, respond. We do not want conflict. The response came not in words but in fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the civilian stations orbiting New Sol. Metal vaporized. Atmosphere vented into the void. Thousands of people died in the first 10 seconds. Battle stations! Hyunwoo shouted, but the Eternal Horizon was not built for this. Its shields flickered and held, but barely. Get me Governor Daehyun on the surface. Evacuate everyone you can. The planet below erupted in chaos. Vrakan ships descended through the atmosphere, their weapons tearing through the city's defenses like they were made of paper. Governor Daehyun's voice crackled over the radio, broken and desperate. They're firing on residential areas. They're not discriminating between military and civilian targets. Minji worked frantically at her station. Captain, I'm recording everything. Every sensor, every camera. The galaxy needs to see this. Around them, the battle raged. Commander Yuna's small defense fleet of 12 ships fought bravely, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. One by one, they fell. Yuna's last transmission was defiant. Earth will remember this. Earth will come for you. Then her ship exploded, a brief star in the darkness. On the surface, the killing continued. Hyunwoo watched his screens in horror as Vrakan troops landed in the city center. They moved through streets where children had played that morning. They destroyed buildings that had taken years to build. They showed no mercy. 47,000 dead, Minji whispered, her hands shaking as she read the numbers. Still climbing. Hyunwoo activated the emergency broadcast system. Every human ship, every human colony, every communication relay would receive this message. He looked into the camera, his face hard as stone. This is Captain Hyunwoo of New Seoul Colony. At 1400 hours standard time, the Vrakan Empire attacked our world without warning or declaration. They have killed tens of thousands of civilians. They are still killing. I am sending all tactical data and recordings with this message. Earth, we need you. But more than that, remember us. Remember what they did here today. The transmission ended. Hours later, the Eternal Horizon's shields finally failed. Hyunwoo ordered his crew to the escape pods, but he stayed at his post, broadcasting until the very end. The last thing his cameras recorded was Vrakan soldiers entering the colony's central plaza. They planted their flag in the ground and declared New Seoul property of their empire. Around them, the city burned. War Master Kelroth stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the conquest below. His tactical officer approached, mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The colony is secured. Minimal Vraka casualties. The humans offered little resistance. Kelroth nodded. As expected. High Commander Thrace was right. They are weak. Spread the word to other fleet commanders. Human space is open for claiming. Their colonies will fall one by one. What of the Galactic Accord's warnings? Foolish old species afraid of their own shadows, Kelroth said. The humans have done nothing to us. They will accept their place as subjects of the Empire, or they will die. Either way, this sector is ours now. Far away in the Sol system, Earth received Hyunwoo's message. In command centers and government halls, humans watched the recordings. They saw their people die. They heard the screams. They counted the bodies. President Haeun sat in her office, surrounded by military advisors and political leaders. The room was silent except for the sound of the recording playing again and again. When it finished, she stood. Recall every diplomat, she said quietly. Withdraw from the Galactic Accord. Convert every factory, every shipyard, every resource to military production. I want the entire human race on a war footing within 1 month. Madam President, one advisor hesitated. The Galactic Accord has rules about total war. There are limits to what— We are leaving the Accord, Haeun interrupted, and we are done with limits. The Vrakan made their choice. Now we make ours. They killed 47,000 of our people. They will learn what that means. General Taejin, Earth's military chief, spoke then. Madam President, what are our rules of engagement? Haeun looked at the screen where Hyunwoo's frozen face stared back at her. She thought of the children in those colonies, the families torn apart. The dreams ended in fire. There are no rules, she said. Not anymore. We gave them the chance for peace. They chose this. Now they will face what humans become when you kill our children. The room emptied as orders went out. Within hours, every human world knew. Within days, the factories began their work. Within weeks, the first new warships launched from Earth's orbital yards. And in the darkness between stars, something ancient and terrible began to wake. Not a monster from outside, but the monster humans kept chained inside themselves. The monster they had hoped never to release. The Vrakan had no idea what was coming for them. But they would learn. They would all learn. 3 months had passed since New Seoul fell. In that time, Earth transformed. Admiral Seojin stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest military station, watching ships take shape in the construction yards below. Where once there had been 12 warships, now there were 50. And more were coming every day. The foundries never stopped. The shipyards never slept. Admiral, the President is ready for you, his aide said. Seojun turned from the window and walked to the briefing room. Inside, President Haeun sat with the War Council. Maps and tactical displays covered every surface. The faces around the table were hard, aged years in just months. Status report. Hyun said without greeting. 200 warships will be ready in 6 weeks, Seojin said. We've recalled every trained pilot. We're running 3 shifts in every training facility. Weapons production has increased by 400%. And the new designs? Hyun asked. Dr. Yoonji stood, activating a holographic display. The weapon that appeared made several council members shift uncomfortably. We've completed testing on the plasma lance system. It can burn through any known shielding. We've also developed kinetic missiles that can track targets through faster-than-light jumps. These weapons violate Galactic Accord conventions, one counselor said carefully. We left the Accord, Hyun replied flatly. Continue, Doctor, Yoonji nodded. We have 3 more weapon systems in development. All of them are designed for one purpose: maximum destruction of enemy forces with minimum risk to our ships. Seojin pulled up another display. Intelligence reports indicate the Vraken have now occupied 4 of our colonies. They're using our people as forced labor. They've killed anyone who resisted. Current death toll stands at 200,000 civilians. The room went silent. 200,000. The number was too large to fully understand, yet too small compared to what was coming. We also have reports from Captain Hyun-woo, Seojun continued. He survived the initial attack. He's leading a resistance movement on New Seoul. On the screen, a recorded message played. Hyun-woo looked thinner, harder. His uniform was torn and stained. Behind him, other resistance fighters moved through what looked like underground tunnels. The Vraken think they control New Seoul, Hyun-woo said into the camera. They're wrong. We hit their supply convoys. We sabotage their equipment. We make them pay for every day they stay on our world. But Admiral, we can't hold forever. When you come in force. Show them what happens when they touch human soil. The message ended. Hyun looked around the table. How long until we can launch the counter-offensive? 2 months, Seojin said. But Madam President, I need to know, what are our objectives? Are we liberating our colonies or are we destroying the Vraken Empire? Hyun met his eyes. Both. We take back what's ours. Then we make sure they can never do this again. To anyone. That means total war, Seojin said. That means we don't stop at their military. We go after their production, their supply lines, their infrastructure, everything that keeps their empire running. Yes, Hyun said simply. Another counselor spoke up. The other species in the galaxy will condemn us. Let them, Hyun said. We asked for peace. We warned them what would happen. They ignored us. The Vraken made this choice. Now they live with the consequences. In the training facilities, Lieutenant Borum climbed into her fighter for the 100th time that week. Her squadron had once been 12 pilots. Now they were 3. The others had died at New Seoul, buying time for civilians to evacuate. She ran through the pre-flight checks automatically. Launch, combat maneuvers. Weapons targeting, landing, then do it again, and again, and again, until her muscles remembered every motion, until she could fly while asleep. Lieutenant, her instructor's voice came through the radio. You've logged more hours than anyone in the program. Take a break. No, sir, Borum said. Run the simulation again. Borum, my family was on New Seoul, she said quietly. My parents. My little brother. He was 6 years old. Run the simulation again, sir. The instructor was silent for a moment. Then simulation starting. Good hunting, Lieutenant. The virtual Vraken ships appeared on her screen. Borum's fingers moved across the controls, her fighter diving and weaving through enemy fire. Each target she destroyed carried a name in her mind. For her mother. For her father. For little Junho, who would never grow up. She would practice until she was perfect. Then she would kill them all. On New Seoul, Hyun-woo and his resistance fighters prepared for another raid. They moved through the underground tunnels that connected the old city, paths the Vraken didn't know existed. The supply convoy will pass through Sector 7 in 20 minutes, his second-in-command said. She was Minji, the doctor who had once been a scientist. Now she built bombs and planned ambushes. How many guards? Hyun-woo asked. 12 soldiers, 2 armored vehicles. We have 16 people. Use the explosives we made from their own munitions. Hyun-woo checked his weapon. A Vraken rifle they'd taken from a dead soldier. Hit them hard. Take what we can carry. Leave nothing for them to recover. The raid went according to plan. The explosives destroyed 1 vehicle. Human fighters swarmed the survivors. The battle lasted 3 minutes. When it ended, 12 Vraken soldiers lay dead. The humans had lost 2 people, but they had gained weapons and food. They'll send more patrols now, Minji said as they retreated. Good, Hyunwoo said. More targets. They wanted to occupy human worlds. Let them learn what that costs. Far away in Vraken space, High Commander Thrace reviewed reports in his command center. The occupation of human colonies was not going as smoothly as expected. Another convoy attacked, his aide reported. 12 soldiers dead. No human casualties recovered for identification. Increase patrols, Thrace ordered. Sir, we've already tripled patrols. The humans are using underground networks. They strike and disappear. We can't find their bases. Thrace's claws scraped against his desk. They are conquered. Why do they not accept this? Sir, there's also the matter of the human military buildup. Our intelligence suggests they're preparing a major offensive. With what? Thrace laughed. They had barely 100 ships. We destroyed half of them. They've constructed over 150 new warships in 3 months, sir. Their entire civilization has converted to war production. Thrace stopped laughing. That's impossible. No species can mobilize that quickly. The humans apparently can, sir. For the first time, doubt crept into Thrace's mind. He remembered the warnings at the Galactic Accord. The ancient species telling him not to attack. He had dismissed them as cowards. Now he wondered. Bring me War Master Kelroth. We need to discuss strategy. Kelroth arrived within the hour. The War Master still carried the confidence of their easy victory at New Sol. High Commander, when do we take the next human colony? We don't, Thrace said. We consolidate what we have. The humans are preparing to strike back. Let them come, Kelroth said. We will crush them as we did before. Will we? Thrace pulled up the intelligence reports. They've built more ships in 3 months than we've built in 3 years. Their weapons technology has advanced beyond our projections, and their civilians refuse to accept occupation. Something is wrong here. They are simply stubborn, Kelroth said. All conquered species resist at first. No, Thrace said slowly. This is different. I have conquered 20 species. None of them reacted like this. The humans are not just resisting. They are transforming their entire society into a weapon aimed at us. Then we will break that weapon, Kelroth said confidently. Thrace wanted to believe him. But the reports kept coming. Human ships spotted at the edge of Vraken space. Human probes mapping their territory. Human broadcasts that simply said, "We are coming." On Earth, the first wave of the Retribution fleet prepared to launch. 200 ships, each one built specifically to kill Vraken. No exploration equipment. No scientific instruments. Just weapons and shields and engines. Admiral Seojin stood before his captains in the briefing room. These men and women had trained for 3 months without rest. They had studied every Vraken tactic, every weakness in Vraken ship design, every way to cause maximum damage. Our mission is simple, Seojin said. We take back New Sol. We take back every colony they've touched. And then we make sure they never attack another human world again. Rules of engagement, sir? One captain asked. There are none, Seojin said. Vraken military ships are targets. Vraken supply ships are targets. Vraken stations are targets. If it supports their war effort, destroy it. Show them the same mercy they showed our civilians. The captains nodded, not with joy but with grim determination. One more thing, Seojin said. Some of you may question what we're about to do. You may wonder if we're becoming monsters. Let me be clear, we did not start this war. We did not want this war. We asked for peace. They gave us death. Now they will learn what human justice looks like. Questions? Silence. Then let's bring our people home. The fleet launched that evening. 200 ships rising from Earth like angry hornets. They jumped to faster than light speed, heading toward New Sol, heading toward revenge. In his resistance hideout, Hyunwoo received a coded message. Cavalry arrives in 72 hours. Hold position. Show them no mercy. He gathered his fighters. These men and women who had lost everything, who had spent 3 months bleeding the enemy with raids and ambushes, who had kept hope alive in the darkness. Earth is coming, he said simply. The cheers echoed through the tunnels, reaching up through the ground. Above, Vraken soldiers heard the sound and wondered what it meant. They would find out soon enough. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, the galaxy would remember. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Sol system. 200 warships hung in space like a promise of violence. On the command deck of the flagship Unforgiven, Admiral Seojin studied the tactical display. Vraken forces? He asked. 40 ships in orbit around New Sol, his tactical officer reported. Another 20 patrolling the outer system. They've detected us. They're moving to intercept. Launch all fighters. Carrier groups. Move to flanking positions. Battleships prepare main weapons. Seojin's voice was calm, almost peaceful. Today we teach them the price of attacking humans. Lieutenant Borum sat in her fighter cockpit, surrounded by 200 other pilots. Her hands were steady on the controls. Her heart beat slowly, regularly. She felt no fear, no excitement, only purpose. All fighters, this is Admiral Seojin. You know what they did here. You know who they killed. Show them what humans do to those who hurt our families. Launch. The fighters screamed forward, a swarm of metal and fury. The Vraken ships moved to meet them, confident in their defensive formations. They had fought dozens of species. They knew how space combat worked, but humans fought differently. Borum's squadron didn't pull back when the Vraken opened fire. They flew straight into the defensive screen, weaving between energy beams that should have destroyed them. Human fighters were smaller, faster, and piloted by people who no longer cared if they survived. They only cared about taking enemies with them. Target the shield generators, Borum ordered her squadron. Concentrate fire. 3 fighters focused their weapons on a single point of a Vraken cruiser's shields. The barrier flickered and failed. Missiles poured through the gap, tearing into the ship's hull. Atmosphere vented. The cruiser listed, dying. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human fighters sacrificing themselves to create openings. Human battleships pouring fire through those gaps. The Vraken had never faced an enemy that fought with such calculated desperation. They're not retreating, the Vraken commander broadcast in confusion. They're damaged and they're still attacking. What are they? War Master Kelroth watched from his command ship as the battle turned against them. Human tactics made no sense. They should be preserving their forces, using careful maneuvers. Instead, they fought like they wanted to die as long as they took Vraken with them. Pull back to the second defensive line, Kelroth ordered. We need to regroup. But the humans didn't let them regroup. The human battleships pushed forward, their shields absorbing damage that should have stopped them. Their weapons burned through Vraken armor, and their fighters, those tiny determined fighters, swarmed over every damaged ship like predators sensing blood. In 6 hours the battle ended. 60 Vraken ships destroyed. 0 survivors recovered from the wreckage. The human fleet had lost 30 ships, but they had won. Admiral Seojin opened a channel to the planet below. Captain Hyunwoo, this is Admiral Seojin. New Sol is free, hold your position, we're coming down. In the underground tunnels, Hyunwoo and his resistance fighters heard the message. Some of them cried. Others simply sat in silence, unable to believe it was real. Let's go welcome our liberators, Hyunwoo said, and then let's help them clean up. The liberation of New Sol took 2 days. Vraken occupation forces tried to fight, but they were surrounded by angry humans on the ground and the fleet in orbit. Some tried to surrender. The humans remembered what the Vraken had done to civilians who surrendered. There were no prisoners. When the fighting ended, Hyunwoo stood in the central plaza where the Vraken had planted their flag 3 months ago. Human soldiers tore it down and burned it. In its place, they raised Earth's flag and the flag of New Sol. The colony was home again, but the war was far from over. In the command center, now cleared of Vraken equipment, Admiral Seojin met with his officers and the resistance leaders. Captain Minji had compiled a list during the occupation. Names of Vraken officers who had ordered executions. Locations of bases where humans had been worked to death. Records of every atrocity. We have 3 more colonies under Vraken occupation, Seojin said. We will liberate them all, but that's just the beginning. Sir? One officer asked. The Vraken Empire must be destroyed, Seojin said simply. Not defeated. Destroyed. We will hunt them across every world they control. We will dismantle their military, their industry, their ability to wage war, and we will make sure they never threaten another species again. Admiral, that's total war. Minji said quietly. That means targeting their infrastructure, their supply lines. Civilian casualties will be inevitable. Yes, Seojin said. Just as our civilian casualties were inevitable when they attacked. They chose this path. Now they walk it to the end. Hyunwoo spoke up. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. I spent 3 months watching them occupy our world. I saw what they did to people who couldn't fight back. I saw children who will never recover from what they witnessed. I saw families torn apart. Hyunwoo's voice was cold, empty of emotion. Whatever we do to them, they earned it. I volunteer to lead the ground forces for the next liberation. Accepted, Seojin said. General Yuna will coordinate with you. We move on the next colony in 1 week. The pattern repeated across human space. Each occupied colony was liberated with overwhelming force. Each Vrakan garrison was destroyed without mercy. And with each victory, the human fleet grew stronger, learning from each battle, adapting their tactics. But Admiral Seojin had larger plans. He summoned Captain Jaeho, commander of the stealth ship Silent Requiem. Jaeho was accompanied by Commander Minji, who had volunteered for special operations after the liberation. Your mission is reconnaissance and sabotage, Seojin explained, showing them a map of Vrakan space. I want you to identify key industrial targets, military shipyards, supply depots. Then I want you to destroy them. Deep strike missions into enemy territory, Jaeho said. They'll hunt us across their entire empire. Yes, Seojin said. But you'll have the advantage. They're looking for fleets, not single ships. Use that. Make them fear their own space. For 8 months, Silent Requiem became a ghost in Vrakan space. It appeared at a military shipyard, destroyed 3 ships under construction, and vanished. It intercepted supply convoys, taking what it needed and destroying the rest. It planted mines in shipping lanes that wouldn't activate for weeks, causing chaos long after the ship had departed. Commander Minji coordinated each strike with cold precision. She remembered every face from New Seoul, every person who died because the Vrakan wanted to conquer. Each target she selected, each base she helped destroy was payment on a debt written in blood. High Commander Thrace watched his empire crumble. The humans had liberated all 4 occupied colonies within 2 months. Now they were attacking Vrakan territory directly. Supply lines were collapsing. Ships were being destroyed before they could launch. Fear spread through the Vrakan military. We need to sue for peace, one of his advisors said. The humans won't negotiate, Thrace said. We've tried. They don't even respond to our messages. Then what do we do? Thrace had no answer. For 300 years, the Vrakan Empire had expanded through conquest. They had always been the predators. Now they were prey and they didn't know how to survive it. Recall all forces to defend our core worlds, Thrace finally said. Concentrate our military. Make them pay for every inch of Vrakan space. But the human strategy had already accounted for that. As the Vrakan pulled back, human forces advanced. Not to occupy, but to destroy. Shipyards were reduced to debris. Supply depots were obliterated. Anything that could support the Vrakan military was targeted. On Earth, President Heian received reports of each victory. The public celebrated as their colonies were freed. But in private, she met with her advisors and asked the question that haunted her. Are we going too far? Dr. Yoonji, who had designed the weapons now tearing through Vrakan space, spoke carefully. We're doing exactly what we said we would do. We're ensuring they can never attack us again. By destroying their civilization, Hyun said. They destroyed ours first, Admiral Seojin said via hologram from the fleet. 200,000 dead. Colonies occupied. People enslaved. We didn't start this, Madam President, but we will finish it. At what cost to our souls? Heian asked. The room was silent. Finally, General Taejin spoke. The cost was paid when they killed our children. Everything since then is just accounting. We're not becoming monsters. We're showing them what monsters we can be when forced to it. Heian wanted to argue, but she had seen the recordings from New Seoul. She had read the reports from the resistance fighters. She knew what the Vrakan had done. Continue the operation, she said quietly. But keep detailed records. History will judge us for this. We need to show them why we made these choices. Lieutenant Borum, now a major after her actions at New Seoul, led her squadron on their 50th mission. They escorted bombers to a Vrakan military base on a colony world. The base was surrounded by civilian areas. Major civilian structures within the blast radius, her wingman reported. Borum studied the tactical display. The base produced weapons and ships. Destroying it would save human lives in future battles, but the civilians near it would suffer. She thought of her little brother, Yunho, 6 years old, playing in the park when the Vraken attacked. She thought of all the families destroyed because the Vraken didn't care about civilian casualties. "Target the base," she ordered. "We didn't put it next to civilians." They did. The missiles launched. The base exploded. The mission was successful. That night, Borum didn't sleep. She kept seeing Junho's face, kept wondering if she had become the thing she hated. But in the morning, she climbed back into her fighter. Because the war wasn't over. Because her brother still needed to be avenged. Because stopping now would mean his death meant nothing. The hunt continued. Human fleets pushed deeper into Vraken space. Silent Requiem and other stealth ships crippled infrastructure. Resistance movements sprang up on conquered Vraken worlds, supported by human special operations teams. War Master Kelroth died when his flagship was destroyed during a supply run. His last transmission was a warning to High Commander Thrace. They fight like demons. They never stop. They never forget. How do we kill something that doesn't fear death? The answer was simple and terrible. You don't. In the occupied territories, Vraken civilians began to flee. Refugee ships packed with families fled toward the galactic core, seeking protection from species who still remembered their own warnings to the Vraken. The galaxy watched in horror as humanity demonstrated what total war meant. Other species debated intervention, but none wanted to face the fury that was breaking the Vraken Empire. And through it all, one phrase spread across 1,000 worlds, whispered in fear. "Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever." Their graves became endless night. 18 months after the war began, the Vraken Empire was dying. Admiral Seojin stood in the war room aboard the Unforgiven, studying maps that showed the collapse. Red markers indicated Vraken military bases destroyed. Blue markers showed human-controlled space, expanding like a stain across the sector. Gray markers showed Vraken worlds that had simply surrendered without fighting, their populations fleeing before human forces arrived. "Current casualty count?" Seojin asked. The intelligence officer pulled up the numbers. Vraken military losses, approximately 6 million personnel. Vraken civilian casualties from collateral damage and infrastructure destruction. Estimated 43 million. Refugee population, over 400 million displaced, 43 million civilians. The number hung in the air like smoke. More than 200 times the human casualties that started this war. Seojin felt nothing looking at it. He had stopped feeling months ago. Human casualties? He asked. Military, 80,000. Civilian deaths from the initial attacks and occupation, 200,000. Total, 280,000, a ratio of over 150 to 1. The Vraken were paying in rivers of blood for the attack on New Sol. "Admiral," Captain Jeho entered the room. "We've located High Commander Thrace. He's fortified on the Vraken homeworld with the remainder of their fleet, approximately 300 ships. And the civilian population? 8 billion on the homeworld. Most major cities. They're not evacuating." General Yuna, who had joined via hologram, spoke then. "Admiral, we need to discuss our objectives. We've crippled the Vraken military. We control their supply lines. We've occupied 12 of their colony worlds. At what point do we stop?" "When they can never threaten us again," Seojin said. "That's genocide," Dr. Yunji said quietly. She sat in the corner of the room looking older than her years. "We're not just defeating them. We're erasing them. They started this," Seojin said. "And we're finishing it by becoming worse than they are," Yunji replied. "Admiral, I've spent 18 months designing weapons to kill Vraken. I've created things that violate every principle of warfare. I've helped target infrastructure that I knew would cause civilian suffering. I've done this because I believed it was necessary. But now I'm asking, when does it end?" "When I say it ends," Seojin said coldly. "When every threat to humanity is eliminated. When the Vraken Empire is nothing but a warning in history books." "Admiral Seojin," President Heun's voice came through the communication system. "I'm ordering you to hold position. Do not advance on the Vraken homeworld until we've discussed terms." "Terms?" Seojin turned to the screen showing Heun in her office on Earth. "Madam President, there are no terms. We take their homeworld. We dismantle their government. We ensure this never happens again. By killing 8 billion people, Hayen's voice was sharp. By removing their ability to wage war. If they surrender, we accept. If they fight, we destroy them. Those are the only two options they've left us. On the Vrakan homeworld, High Commander Thrace prepared for the end. His empire, built over 3 centuries of conquest, was gone. His fleets were scattered or destroyed. His colonies were occupied or abandoned. All he had left was his homeworld and the people on it. They're 3 days away, his aide reported. The human fleet numbers over 400 ships now. We have 300 and most are damaged. Thrace looked at the tactical displays. The human advance had been relentless, mechanical, terrifying in its efficiency. They didn't grandstand. They didn't negotiate. They simply advanced, destroyed, and moved forward. Broadcast a message, Thrace said. On all frequencies. Surrender terms, sir. You heard me. We surrender. Unconditionally, completely. Tell them we will disarm, we will submit to their authority, we will accept any terms. Just tell them to stop. The broadcast went out. It reached human forces within minutes. The response took 6 hours. It was silence. They're not acknowledging. The communications officer said in disbelief. Sir, they're not even responding to our surrender. Thrace understood then. The humans didn't want surrender. They wanted punishment. They wanted revenge. They wanted the Vrakan to understand completely and finally what it meant to attack humanity. Evacuate the civilians. Thrace ordered. Every ship we have, military or civilian, start evacuating the major cities. Get as many people off-world as possible. Where will they go? Anywhere but here, Thrace said. The humans are coming, and I don't think they'll stop until there's nothing left to destroy. The evacuation began. Thousands of ships lifted from the Vrakan homeworld, carrying refugees to neighboring systems. Some went to allies, some to neutral space, some simply fled into the unknown. Better to be lost in space than face what was coming. Captain Hyun-woo stood in the command center of the occupied world he now governed. 6 months ago, this had been a Vrakan military stronghold. Now it was under human control, and the transformation was absolute. Vrakan language was banned in public spaces. Vrakan history was being erased from schools. Vrakan cultural sites were demolished to make room for human construction. The population was required to learn human customs, human language, human law. It was cultural erasure, pure and simple, and Hyun-woo enforced it without mercy. Sir, there's a protest in Sector 12, his aide reported. Vrakan civilians demanding the return of their cultural centers. Disperse them, Hyun-woo said. Arrest the leaders. Make it clear that Vrakan culture died when they attacked New Seoul. Sir, some of the occupation forces are questioning these policies. They say we're becoming oppressors. Hyun-woo turned to his aide, his eyes hard. Tell them they're right. We are oppressors. The Vrakan oppressed us, killed our families, destroyed our homes. Now we're teaching them what that feels like. Anyone who has a problem with that can request reassignment. But even as he said it, Hyun-woo felt something crack inside him. He remembered being a colony ship captain, excited about exploring new worlds. He remembered believing in peaceful coexistence. That man seemed like someone from another life. Major Borum led her squadron on their 117th mission. They had stopped counting individual kills months ago. The numbers were too high, too abstract. Now they just flew, fought, and survived. Major, we have refugee ships fleeing the homeworld, her sensor operator reported. Civilian transports. No weapons, orders? Borum looked at her tactical display. Hundreds of ships packed with Vrakan families trying to escape before the human fleet arrived. Military doctrine said they were fleeing combatants until verified otherwise. She could justify destroying them. She thought of Junho again. Her little brother who would never grow up. She thought of her parents, vaporized in the first attack. She thought of all the human families destroyed by Vrakan ruthlessness. Let them go, she said quietly. Track their trajectories, but don't engage. They're not soldiers. Major Admiral Seojin's orders are to eliminate all Vrakan military capability. These refugees could rebuild elsewhere. They're children and families, Borum said firmly. We're not killing children. That's what makes us different from them. Her wingman spoke up. Is it though, Major? We've destroyed cities. We've targeted infrastructure knowing civilians would suffer. At what point did we become what we're fighting? Borum had no answer. She just watched the refugee ships flee, carrying the remnants of a broken civilization, and wondered if her brother would be proud of what she had become. 3 days later, the human fleet arrived at the Vrakan homeworld. 400 warships faced 300 damaged Fracken vessels. High Commander Thrace broadcast one final message. Human forces, this is High Commander Thrace of the Vracan Empire. I was wrong. We were wrong. We attacked you thinking you were weak. We killed your people thinking there would be no consequence. We were fools. I accept full responsibility for this war and all its horrors. I surrender myself and all remaining Vracan forces unconditionally. Please spare my homeworld. Whatever you want, whatever terms you demand, we accept. Just stop. The message reached Admiral Seojin. His officers waited for his response. General Yuna, Captain Jeho, Commander Minji, all of them waited to see what he would do. Send a reply, Seojin said. 3 words, too late, Commander. Admiral, they're surrendering, Yuna protested. We've won. We can stop now. We stop when I'm sure they can never do this again, Seojin said. All ships, advance. Target military installations, shipyards, weapons production facilities. I want their capacity for war reduced to 0. The battle for the Vracan homeworld lasted 12 hours. It was not close. Vracan forces fought desperately, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and broken in spirit. One by one, their ships fell. Their orbital defenses were destroyed. Their shipyards were reduced to scrap. High Commander Thrace's flagship was the last to fall. Before it exploded, he recorded a final message. His scales were dark with exhaustion, his eyes haunted by what he had seen. To whoever finds this, we attacked the humans because we thought they were weak. We were wrong. They are not weak. They are restrained. When you break that restraint, you face something terrible. We killed 47,000 of them in our first attack. They have killed tens of millions of us in response. They will not stop. They will not forgive. They will hunt you across the galaxy if you hurt them. This is my final warning. Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever. Their graves became endless night. He ended the recording and remained at his post as human missiles tore through his ship's hull. When the battle ended, the Vracan homeworld stood damaged but intact. Its military was destroyed. Its government was gone. Its people huddled in their cities, waiting to see what the humans would do next. Admiral Seojin addressed his fleet. The Vracan Empire no longer exists. Their military is destroyed. Their capacity for war is eliminated. But we will not slaughter civilians. We will not bomb cities. We are not them. We will occupy, we will control, but we will not genocide. Why? Someone asked. After everything they did? Because, Seojin said tiredly, someone has to remember what we were before this war. Someone has to hold on to the idea that we're better than this, even if we've forgotten how to be better. On Earth, President Heon received the news of victory. The Vracan Empire was finished. The war was over. Humanity had won. She sat alone in her office and wept. For the dead. For the broken. For the price they had paid for victory. For what humanity had become in pursuit of revenge. The war was over. But the scars would last forever. 3 years after the last battle, Earth celebrated Victory Day. Parades filled the streets. Children waved flags. Veterans marched in formation, their uniforms decorated with medals. The war was over. Humanity had won. The celebrations rang hollow. Admiral Seojin did not attend the parades. He lived alone in a small house by the ocean, far from any city. Every morning he woke to nightmares. Every night he saw the faces of the dead, both human and Vracan. The numbers haunted him. 280,000 humans killed, 43 million Vracan civilians dead, a ratio that made him a monster, no matter how justified it seemed at the time. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find President Heon, no longer in office but still carrying the weight of the war years. Seojin, she said. May I come in? He stepped aside. They sat in his simple living room. 2 people who had led humanity through its darkest period, now just tired souls seeking peace they couldn't find. The tribunal begins next week, Heon said. They're calling it a war crimes investigation. They want testimony from everyone who made strategic decisions. Good, Seojin said. They should investigate. What we did needs to be examined. You don't sound worried. I'm not. I'm guilty. Seojin looked at his hands. I ordered strikes on infrastructure knowing civilians would die. I refused surrender when it was offered. I pursued total victory when peace was possible. If that's not a war crime, I don't know what is. You saved humanity, Heon said. Did I? Seojin asked. Or did I just teach the galaxy to fear us? We wanted peace. They attacked us. So we destroyed their entire civilization. What does that make us? Heian had no answer. She had asked herself the same question every day for 3 years. In the occupied territories, General Yuna worked to undo the damage. The cultural erasure, the oppression, the destruction of Rakan identity had seemed necessary during the war. Now in the aftermath, it looked like something else entirely. We're restoring the historical sites we demolished, she told her staff. We're allowing Vrakan language in schools again. We're giving them limited self-governance. General, some of the military leaders are protesting, her aide said. They say we're being too soft. That the Vrakan need to be controlled. They're not prisoners, Yuna said firmly. They're people living under occupation. Yes, they started a war. Yes, they killed our civilians. But we won. We destroyed their military. We occupied their worlds. How much more punishment do they need? But the answer wasn't simple. In the Vrakan population, hatred grew. Children grew up hearing stories of human brutality. They learned how the humans had crushed their empire, killed millions, erased their culture. A new generation was learning to hate, and Yuna feared what would come of it. Dr. Yunji published her memoir 3 years after the war ended. She called it The Weapons We Made. In it, she detailed every system she had designed, every target she had helped select, every calculation that led to death. She included her thought process, her justifications, her nightmares. The book became required reading in military academies across human space, not as a celebration but as a warning. We created weapons that could burn through any defense, she wrote. We designed systems that could track and destroy enemy ships with terrifying efficiency. We developed targeting algorithms that could select industrial targets while calculating acceptable civilian casualties. We did all of this believing it was necessary, believing we were protecting humanity. We never stopped to ask if we were protecting humanity's soul. Captain Hyun Woo ran a support organization for veterans. Thousands of soldiers and sailors came through his doors. Men and women who had fought in the war and couldn't adjust to peace. They had seen too much, done too much. The world had moved on, but they were still fighting. I can't sleep, a young veteran told him during a session. She had been a fighter pilot, one of the best. Every time I close my eyes, I see the ships I destroyed. I see the bases I bombed. I keep counting the bodies. I know, Hyunwoo said gently. I see them too. The Vrakan I killed during the resistance. The soldiers I executed after New Seoul was liberated. The policies I enforced during the occupation. Does it get better? No, Hyunwoo said honestly. But you learn to live with it. You learn that you're not alone. And you try to make sure it never happens again. Major Borum had become a teacher. She trained new pilots, but not in combat tactics. She taught them history, ethics, the cost of war. Her students learned to fly, but they also learned why fighting should always be the last option. The Vrakan started the war, she told her class. That's true. They killed 47,000 civilians in their first attack. That's also true. But here's what else is true. We killed 43 million of them. Most of them weren't soldiers. Most of them didn't vote to attack us. They were just people living under a government that made a terrible decision, and they paid for that decision with their lives. A student raised his hand. Major, are you saying we were wrong? No, Borum said carefully. I'm saying it's complicated. We had to defend ourselves. We had to stop the Vrakan from attacking other species. But somewhere along the way, defense became revenge. Protection became destruction. And we need to remember that so we never lose ourselves like that again. She thought of Junho every day. Her little brother would have been 9 now if he had lived. She wondered what he would think of what she had become. Would he be proud? Or would he be afraid of his sister who had killed so many? The Galactic Accord debated humanity's return for 2 years. The older species, those who had warned the Vrakan, argued for acceptance. The younger species, horrified by what they had witnessed, argued for sanctions and isolation. Ambassador Jiwon stood before the council once again, in the same chamber where she had tried to prevent the war. 3 years ago, I stood here and asked for peace, she said. I told High Commander Thrace that attacking humanity would be a mistake. I told him we would not forgive, we would not forget. He didn't listen. Now the Vrakan Empire is gone and millions are dead. And you expect us to welcome you back? A young species representative asked. After what you did? No, Jiwon said. I don't expect welcome. I expect judgment. We deserve judgment. But I ask you to remember we didn't start this war. We tried diplomacy. We offered peace. We gave warnings. Everything we did, we told them we would do. We didn't lie. We didn't surprise them. They simply didn't believe we would follow through. The ancient energy being spoke then, its voice carrying the weight of 10,000 years. The humans did exactly what they said they would do. They warned the Fracken. The Fracken attacked anyway. What followed was terrible, but it was not unpredicted. The question is, can we trust humanity now? Will they remember their restraint? Or have they forgotten how to be peaceful? We haven't forgotten, Jiwan said quietly. We're just not sure how to find our way back to it. That's why we want to rejoin the Accord. Not because we're proud of what we did, because we need help remembering who we were before the war. The vote was close, but humanity was readmitted to the Galactic Accord, with conditions: regular inspections of military capability, restrictions on certain weapon systems, and mandatory education programs about the cost of total war. Humanity accepted all conditions without complaint. On New Sol, now fully rebuilt, a memorial stood in the central plaza. It listed every human who died in the Vraken attack, 47,000 names carved in stone. But beneath that list was another, 43 million Vraken names representing the civilians who died in the war that followed. The memorial's inscription read, "We remember our dead. We remember their dead. We remember what happens when peace fails. Never again." Former Admiral Seojin visited the memorial on the 5th anniversary of the war's end. He stood in the rain, reading names he couldn't pronounce, representing people he had never met but had helped kill. A young Vraken approached him. She was part of a student group studying on New Sol, learning human culture as part of the reconciliation program. She recognized him from historical photographs. "You're Admiral Seojin," she said. "I was," he replied. "Now I'm just a man trying to understand what he did." "My grandmother died in the war," the young Vraken said. "She was in a city near a military base. The base was destroyed. So was her home." "I'm sorry," Seojin said. It seemed inadequate, but it was all he had. "She recorded a message before she died," the student continued. "She said humans were right to be angry. She said our empire was wrong to attack. She said she hoped her death would teach our people never to start wars they couldn't finish." Seojun looked at the young Vraken. "Your grandmother was wise. Are you proud of what you did?" The question hung in the air. Seojun thought about it carefully. "No, I'm not proud. I did what I thought was necessary to protect humanity. I'd probably do it again if faced with the same choice. But I'm not proud. Pride would mean I learned nothing." "What did you learn?" "That winning isn't the same as being right. That protecting your people can mean losing your soul. That revenge and justice look the same when you're angry, but they lead to very different places." Seojin looked back at the memorial, and that graves don't end. Every person we killed, every life we destroyed created more graves. For them, for us, for the peace we lost. The young Vraken nodded slowly. "My grandmother's message ended with something else. She said, 'Tell the humans we're sorry, tell them we understand now, and ask them to please stop.' We did stop," Seojin said quietly. "We just stopped too late. 100 years later, the war existed only in memory and museums. The humans and Fraken who fought had all died. New generations grew up knowing the story, but not the passion, the anger, the fear. A museum on Earth displayed artifacts from the war, weapons, uniforms, recordings of battles, and in the center, a holographic message that played on repeat. It was High Commander Thrace's final recording. "Do not attack the humans. They will hunt you forever." Their graves became endless night. School children visited the museum, listening to guides explain what had happened. They learned about the attack on New Sol. They learned about humanity's response. They learned about the cost, the horror, the lessons. An old Vraken, one of the last who remembered the war firsthand, worked as a guide. He had been a child during the conflict, one of the refugees who fled the homeworld before the final battle. "My parents told me stories," he said to a group of young visitors, both human and Vraken. "They told me about the Empire, about how we thought we were unstoppable, about how we saw humans as weak because they chose peace. We were wrong about everything." A young human student asked, "Why didn't your leaders listen to the warnings?" "Because," the old Vraken said, "we thought might made right. We thought military power was the only power that mattered. We didn't understand that some species are peaceful not because they're weak, but because they choose to be. And when you take away that choice, when you force them to become violent, you face something terrifying." "Are humans still dangerous?" a young Vraken asked. "Yes," the guide said, "but so are we. So is everyone when pushed far enough. The lesson isn't that humans are uniquely dangerous. The lesson is that everyone has a breaking point, and you should never, ever try to find it. The tour ended at a display showing the aftermath, the rebuilt colonies, the reconciliation programs, the generations of work to heal the wounds. Progress had been made. The scars remained, but they were healing. As the students filed out, the old Vraken guide stood alone in the museum. He thought about his parents, long dead. He thought about the empire that had raised him, now just history. He thought about the humans who had destroyed everything he knew, then helped rebuild it. And he thought about the graves. The endless graves. Human and Vraken, buried in the same soil, marked by the same sorrow, remembered by the same lesson. Never again. In her office, the current human ambassador to the Galactic Accord reviewed the latest reports. Tensions in a distant sector, a young species making aggressive moves, old patterns repeating. She activated her communication system and sent a message to the species in question. It was simple, direct, and carried the weight of history. This is humanity speaking. We understand the temptation to use force to solve problems. We've been there. But we're telling you now as friends, there are no good wars. There are no clean victories. There are only graves and the people who dig them. Choose peace. Choose diplomacy. Choose anything except violence. Because once you start down that path, you may win, but you'll lose something more important. Trust us, we know the message was sent. Whether it would be heard, whether it would be heeded, remained to be seen. But humanity would keep sending it. Keep warning. Keep remembering. Because that was the only way the graves would finally end.